My first reaction to that was like, oh, they threw Manqoba under the bus, because if he was equally responsible for how the team are performing and putting out that team, then the result happened, which the statement said that we're not happy as management with how results have been going up to this point. Then the solution is to say, Manqoba, it's your fault, so we are taking you away from that decision-making process at the highest level, and you can assist Rhulani. This is now Rhulani's team. And the first thing that we saw, which is exactly what I wanted to see against Pirates, is you see within that midfield, you see Domingo is playing, you see Mayema is playing. Mayema played deep in the first leg against Orlando Pirates, and I was unhappy about that because Shalulile wasn't dangerous in front of goal in that match. Shalulile was absent in the second leg, and if you don't then have a recognized striker, Mailula just came up from development, but he's still a young man. In the absence of that, then you're looking for your false nines, then you're looking for your third man runners, you're looking for your midfielders who are going to go into the box and who can score goals. Mayema is the one midfield player who has the greatest eye for goal amongst the options that Sundowns have, which is why I would have wanted to see him and playing in an advanced role against Orlando Pirates. He was playing in that role against Maritzburg. Domingo scored 2 goals where he's tapping it in from the penalty spot. You also then have Umurena, who is bombing down the wing, giving that width, putting those crosses into the box, and you have those goals. All of those things would have been welcomed against that Pirates defense, which is exactly what I'm talking about in terms of a little more dynamism, where you do see like Sundowns put in 3, 4, 5 players into the box against that Maritzburg defense, and it paid off in the form of goals. You had your overloads happening inside the box, and it equaled goals. So that looks good for the future going forward. And I speak of the future because what I was saying to you is what goes under the radar, which is what is happening with Mamelodi Sundowns, which in my opinion, without granting them excuses, might be part of the reason why you're seeing the results that are up and down, is that Sundowns are transitioning. They're transitioning away from the Pitso Mosimane team and the teams that we've seen win all of the accolades that they've won. You have the best player in a generation in the PSL, in my opinion, Themba Zwane. He's not getting as much game time. You have a Serena who was his partner in crime. He's not getting as much game time as well. Ujali might not be playing as often.
Maxed out,
because they went out and signed Mbule, went out and signed Mokwena, went out and brought back Uzum. So you have other options in that holding midfield spot where it's not going to be Jali or bust. And in terms of the other options, Mkhulisa was playing in that midfield as well. And as I'm saying, Domingo comes into that midfield. So even the goalkeeper is a different goalkeeper. It's not Onyango, who has been a mainstay at the back. So it's a new team. And it's a team that is developing, and now they've got the commander-in-chief in Rhulani Mokwena. So I think we might still see some of the up and down performances. We've seen this from Orlando Pirates with the new coach. We've seen this from Kaizer Chiefs with the new coach. And yes, Rhulani has been established within that system for a while. But in terms of, it's only his voice that's going to be heard, and there's a new group of players. I think that's, as I'm saying, part of why Sundowns have looked the way that they've looked. But it's exciting times.
If Sundowns are saying that because of results, obviously it's not just that, because of internal assessments, here's who we're going with. Do you not think then, because we've always understood what Rhulani is tactical. He's always putting out his board telling us here's how Sundowns play, number one. Number two, he's the manager who went away to get his own coaching time at Pirates and then went to Chipa, if I'm mistaken, and then came back to Sundowns as well. So I do think even though he was the lesser, he must have wanted to express his ideas while at Sundowns, and maybe Manqoba did give him a bit of that, even though he was the head coach. Do you not think that reshuffling then, whereas my ideas were working, oh, I won everything last season, and now, do you not think that that's going to cause tension, or do you think they can work that for the entirety of the season?
It could, because just last season there was a news report that was circulating where there was trouble in paradise, with some comments coming from Rhulani as well, and then Manqoba coming back with his own comments where you looked at it and it's like there's trouble in paradise. But then, because winning solves everything, that didn't go very far. So it might, but at the same time, in looking back to that situation as well, I would imagine that they've had time to iron those issues out. The other thing with Sundowns, Chuck, Rhulani Mokwena was coaching development at Sundowns, and then he was brought up into the first team where he was an assistant. Yes, he went away. Then he was welcomed back, right? And then along with Manqoba was given the reins. My thinking is that this was always the plan, that whenever Pitso Mosimane moves away, the guy that we want to take over from him long term is Rhulani, because Rhulani is a precocious talent as a coach. Lest we forget, Rhulani is in his mid-30s, you know, and he speaks a good game in terms of, like, he's a football nerd. He understands the game where he says things that go over your head, unless you are that in tune with the game as well, you know. It's to be seen how that translates in terms of to his players and what it looks like on the field. So I think this is something, whether it was discussed with everyone, it was, for me at least, it looks like something that was always known, that this is the future. This is the heir to the throne. And now is his time, and we are handing over the keys to him, as I'm saying. And then in terms of the other two parties within that coaching triumvirate is Steve Khompela and Manqoba Mngqithi. Those are grown men, right, to begin with. Secondly, where I don't know them personally, obviously, but every time I've listened, I hear them speaking on public platforms, they sound like people who are cerebral. And they sound like people who cut wise figures, especially Steve Khompela, which I actually think is why he was brought into that Sundowns coaching room. Not particularly because of his football knowledge, which is expansive as well, also for that, but also because of what he's able to bring in terms of a human touch, and not necessarily to referee the two parties, but if needs be, he's the perfect person who's able to sit both of them down and say, hey. And they also then cut figures who are able to listen to that. And Manqoba is someone who's been successful as a coach in South Africa. And he spent all that time being Pitso Mosamane's second in command. And probably he was hoping that if Pitso moves away, he's going to be the one who takes over. And he had that opportunity. And now he's been demoted, to not sugarcoat, he's been demoted again to assistant to Rhulani. And again, I think that that's a grown man who will give that support, or may give that support. We will find out as time goes, obviously. But he's played that position before as someone with his resume. And now that he's being asked to do it again, as Rhulani said after the game against Maritzburg, that Sundowns is an institution that we're here to serve. If all of them really truly think that way, then it will be a seamless transition to this new structure. So I think judging by what I know from these men, by what I've read, what I've heard from them, this is the best situation to be able to make that change. These are the best characters to be able to make the change with